Susan Epstein, welcome to the Health Coaches Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you and I have been connected for a long time, and we've both gone through many iterations of career. And one of the things I think has been true for you for a long time is you've always been an educator, and you've always been very thoughtful about how people learn, and especially how people learn in groups.
Yes.
So what I wanted to talk with you about is you teach people how to run group coaching programs. And when I was transitioning from individual coaching to groups, I reached out to you and you gave me a whole bunch of tips and tricks and techniques that were very, very helpful in managing the things so that I wasn't just helping the person I was helping, but everyone in the program was getting something useful out of it at the same time. So I wonder if you could maybe just sort of briefly introduce yourself, and then we can get into like why someone would want to do group coaching in the first place, and then get into the tips that you have for them. So who's Susan?
Hey, so I'm Susan Epstein, and I'm in Connecticut. And in my prior life, I was a psychotherapist for over 30 years, and also did a lot of training across the country for clinicians who wanted to get their continuing ed unit. So yes, I have been an educator as well. I was a health coach for 7 years. I don't know if you knew that. I did that too.
I didn't know that. And I also didn't know how to pronounce your last name, obviously.
It doesn't matter. It's both ways. It doesn't matter. Funny story about that. My husband was in 5th grade and his father changed it from Steen to Stein. He said, now it's Stein. So I married it, so I just kind of adopted the whatever, but people call me everything, so, right? That's okay. So anyway, and then I became a parenting coach and blah, 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 and now I do business coaching, but the thing that I love to do the most is to help coaches leverage their time and also help more people, because I think most of us who are in the helping field, when you ask people, during one of those intro sessions or whatever that you're doing with them, like, why do you do what you do? And they're like, to make an impact, to help people. Well, if you work one-on-one with people, how many people do you think you can help in a year, one-on-one? But if you help people in a group, how many more people could you help? So that's like the two-pronged effect. The other is efficiency. Having more time to do other things that are important to you in your life other than work. Like maybe you want to spend time with your family. Maybe you want to plant a garden. Maybe you're an athlete and you want to do something. Maybe you also are a musician, and like people have a lot of gigs going on in their lives. So I'm looking at your guitar right there, Howie. Yeah. So, we all want to, nobody wants to work, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week. So if you can find some commonality in your client, in your target market, in your client niche, and say, hey, let's just put all those people together and coach them together at the same time, it gives you more time, hours that you were working with them individually. It's also a great way for people to taste your coaching at a lower price.
See, I believed all those things when I started doing group coaching, but the thought in the back of my head was that this is a lower cost program, and therefore it's for people who can't afford like the gold standard, which is working with me one-on-one. And what I discovered after doing group coaching, especially around health behaviors, was that the group coaching was actually more powerful than the individual coaching. And I mean, the most powerful was doing the two together. So people could become very vulnerable with me and we could go into deep dives. But if I had to say, if someone needed my help and I had to choose between group coaching or one-on-one, I think I would kind of choose the group because of the normalization of their issues and how it's so much easier. Like when you tell me your problem, I can solve it in a second, right? It's my problems that are intractable.
That's right.
And so when you get a group of people who all have the same problem, every time someone else talks, I give myself an answer.
Yes. Yeah. And when you're running the group, here's a little tip, and you're coaching one of the people in the group, hot seat coaching that person, when you're done, you can say, who else found that valuable? And people put their
Mm.
hands up. And they're,
Mm.
or when you get to their turn, they're like, you already answered my question because she said, what I needed to hear. But I have another question. And people usually say, and wrapping up your group at the end is, what did you find most valuable about our time together? Great question at the end to put a bow on it. And then people will share when you said that, or when she said that, or just hearing everybody else talk about this, I don't feel so alone. So just reiterating what you said, people do feel like in community. Yeah.
Great. So you just gave us a couple of tips, but what should we think about? Let's say someone wants to dip their toe into group coaching. They haven't done it before. They somehow they get a group of people, they get the right people, they're, on a topic. How do you start? Because,
Yeah.
I find, I'm a little bit sort of shy and awkward, and, I find it endearing. Many people do not. But it's hard for me to bang the gavel, get everyone's attention. How do you elegantly sort of start when people are popping on and
Yeah. Great question.
that first moment?
Love that. I usually wait until most people are there, even if it's like a minute after we're starting. Let's get another minute before I actually even turn the recording on. And people are just waving at each other and saying hi. And then I'm like, okay, welcome to one of my groups is the High Profit Inner Circle. We meet on Thursdays, on the second and fourth Thursdays of the month at 1:00 p.m. for 90 minutes. So I usually just say that. So this is why we're here. And I repeat it every time. Here we are again. And this is when we meet. And then I usually do a check-in. And I sometimes have questions prepared. And sometimes I don't, and I just kind of feel like, what do I want to ask them this morning? I'm a bit of a do it on the fly. I like to kind of suss out what's going on in the world and how people are feeling. We are, obviously in the midst of this lockdown and the COVID thing. And so we've been kicking off a lot of our group calls now with, what did you do different today that you haven't done different yesterday? Did you have anything exciting? Yes, I made an apple pie, or, I planted my cucumbers, So just something to spice it up. I've asked silly questions like, how do you like your eggs? And then it's just hysterical. People just go around and share, just loosens people up. Like think about icebreakers when you go to an event. It could also be, if it's a business group, I'll do things like share a win. In a health group, it might say, share something that was difficult and how you overcame it in one sentence. Because the problem with a check-in is they can go on and on and on. And sometimes I'll go first and model it. And then I'll type the question in the Zoom chat. If people come in late on Zoom, they won't see the chat. So you have to remember to keep putting it in every time a new person comes, or they won't be able to see the question if you're going to use the chat feature at all. So that kind of thing. And then I also might include in that first question, who needs a hot seat today? Because my groups are very interactive. They're not like, I don't teach a lot during our groups. Sometimes I'll do a 10 or 15 topic, but then most of the time is this hot seat coaching where people are getting coached on something that's a challenge for them, something they need help with to move forward. So, but other people do drip content, a lot of content in their groups. On the flip side of that, it can be really boring to listen to the facilitator just talk the whole time, because it's not a class. That's not group coaching. Group coaching is coaching. Right.
So when I also used to do business coaching, and people would come very eager, right? Because their business was to some extent separate from themselves. Like, hey, I got this issue, or help me with this, marketing thing. I find with health, it's so much more personal.
Yes.
That very often everyone wants to go last, or no one wants to go at all. And when people come with burning problems, the problem on top of it is, I don't feel worthy of taking up everybody's time. How do you help people who are reticent and reluctant?
So sometimes in the beginning, especially in the beginning of a group, when people are like deer in the headlights and they don't know each other, it takes a while to establish that trust and safety in a group format. So you want to make sure that you structure it really tightly in the beginning. Like if you're kicking this off next week, you know, for the first 4 or 5 sessions that you do, you want to have like an agenda that's pretty tight. And you also want to have some backup and prompts to get people to talk about different subjects. Today, we're going to talk about what do you do when a family member brings a box of donuts in the house? Let's share, you know, and there's plenty of hypothetical things, you know, who here has a scale and uses it and who doesn't believe in scales? Let's share why. So questions like that, or, you know, how are you a vegetarian if the rest of your family isn't, you know? Or if you're lactose intolerant, and people have all kinds of things now with, you know, health and food and all of that, right? And if you're the person cooking the food, you know, how does that work? Or who cooks the food in your house? How does that work? So easy subjects in the beginning that are about sharing what our lives are like behind the curtain, and then saving some of those struggles and deeper issues once the group gets a little more close and a little more solidified. Then the tears can fall. I can't believe I ate the donut, you know, or I can't believe, you know, that, you know, I'm so angry at my family because they don't support me, or, you know, wherever people wanna, or I'm so mad at myself, or I can't believe I did that. I was doing so good and I thought I had willpower. And that's a great, you know, way as a health coach to go in and say, it's not about willpower, you know, it's not about willpower. You know, it's about changing your daily habits and loving those habits, you know. So getting everyone on that, you know, into a new language and educating through modeling and educating through that way and helping people move through some of those struggles. But I think, like you said, it's not going to be the first call, isn't going to be like a deep share of my terrible life, you know. It's really going to be a lighter version that moves into a deeper trust.
I've made that mistake. And I've made the mistake because there was a person on the call who wanted to share deeply and was ready to go deeply. And what I didn't recognize was that that was scaring the hell out of everybody else who thought that that was the bar, that now they were going to have to talk about, you know, their dysfunctional childhood and their alcoholism. And because, you know, I just, as a coach, I was trained to follow the one person. But when it's a group, there's elements of theater as well.
Yeah, and you're always going to have one person in the group that's what they call it, the fly in the ointment. It doesn't matter if you're at the movie theater, there's one person that's annoying in the movie theater. If you're teaching a class, there's one kid that's acting out. Like, people are just like that. And so part of being a really great facilitator is allowing the person that's difficult, giving them slightly more attention in a different way, maybe calling on them first. Oh, let's hear from, you know, Joe first today, you know, and, you know, Joe, could you be the timekeeper today? Give that person a job, you know, so you don't have to do it. You know, if you're dividing up, if you're like, everybody gets 10 minutes each today on the hot seats or whatever. Hey, Joe, do you mind holding up a sign when we have 2 minutes left on that person?
Right. Yeah. I used to do that when I taught kindergarten. Right. The troublemaker kid became the hall, you know, the hall monitor.
The hall monitor or the class pet, right? Yeah.
Right. So a timely.
You know what you said. You're absolutely right.
Sorry, you cut out. I missed
I missed what you said too. So you start.
Okay. Okay. Well, I have another question actually. It's kind of timely, which is, so when I started doing group sessions on Zoom, almost everyone I was working with that was their first experience on Zoom. So we had to do like, what is this thing? How does it work? Is my mic on? Now, even in the last 2 months, everybody's on Zoom, which in one sense is great because I don't have to teach them the basics. But on the other hand, they're having Zoom fatigue. And I'm wondering if you have any experience with, you know, like I've gotten much laxer in making people turn on their video just because you know, if people can feel like, what have you noticed in the last couple of months just about people's interaction?
Actually, nothing different at all, because I've always done for the past 5 years or 7 years since Zoom. I was one of the first people to use Zoom
Mm.
I was using Zoom when the guy was one guy in his apartment on his couch. Like I had heard about it maybe 8, 9 years ago, whenever it came out. And so I've been using it with all my clients for so long that everybody that I work with, and certainly I work with coaches, and most coaches are extremely familiar with it. Once in a while, there might be a beginner who didn't know it, but not now. And in terms of fatigue, one of the things that I think is so important is community. And that's a really big mission for me with my clients. And they want to see each other. They don't want to be off camera.
Mm.
So if you have a really big group of, like, let's say over 25 people that you're in your Zoom room, you're going to have 5 or 6 people are going to go off camera. They're going to be eating lunch, they're going to be doing other things. They're going to be walking around. Sometimes if somebody's like walking with their laptop, I tell them to shut off their video, because it's like everybody's like dizzy because you can feel that thing.
Uh-huh.
But I would say that 90% of our people keep their camera on in my world.
Mm-hmm.
And no one's told me they're tired of being on Zoom. I mean, I'm tired at the end of the day because that's my job. But I don't know how many hours they're sitting in front of a camera. I don't know. They're not talking about it.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
And one more question. How can you tell when your group session is going well or poorly? Because I've had experiences where I thought I nailed it, and then half of the people write for refunds. Like, this isn't for me. And I was totally clueless. So, I can see, it's Hollywood Squares. I can see all the faces. There are clues that sometimes I get and sometimes I don't, if I'm just sort of laser focused on one person.
Yeah. Deer in the headlight. Somebody just, or facial expressions, or turning off the camera a lot could be disengagement. That could happen. One of the things that we do in our group programs is we have an agreement where they agree to remain in our program for 12 months. So it's the duration of, and they sign that. And since we started using that, since forever, our retention rate is probably 96%. The only people that drop out of our programs are people that get sick. I got cancer or something bad happened, or sometimes they'll just say, can I just pause for a couple of months till I get better? Because I had 3 people get the virus in our programs that took a month off to get better, and then come back. So we just have that understanding that this is from the get-go, that this program is the length that you say that you want it to be, and you're all in, and there's no quitting. So I've always ran my programs like that. I know some people do run it like month to month and leave when you want, but the people that I've coached that have gone that route end up with 1 or 2 people in their group, because people get disinterested. The next shiny object. There's so many things to choose from that they could be involved in. My job is to keep the focus and keep them engaged and keep it fresh. So if I see people getting bored, I'm like, what can I do? I got to change it up. I bring guest experts in once in a while, so that somebody else than me teaching something that is collaborative with what I do. So let's say I just brought a guy in that taught about LinkedIn. He came into our group and he gave us a quick and dirty lesson for 45-minute, hour-long lesson on how to get the profile looking better. And people shared their LinkedIn screens, and he worked on a couple in real time. And then obviously, after that, he was very lucky because everybody wanted him to fix their profile, and he made a lot of money. But I didn't pay him anything to come. He was a really good friend of mine who, I wanted to give a promo to, in a sense. So I let him come in, but it was something that my people really needed. They really needed it. I had our friend Rob came in and taught people how to do webinars. Way when I started my group a long time ago, taught about evergreen webinars and how to set them up. Did a training. I had somebody come in and do some mindfulness meditation stuff. Just, give myself a break. Maybe 6 times a year, have a guest, and then promote that. On the back end, hey, don't miss it, because I've got a guest coming in to try to keep people in my world, one-stop shopping, where they're not going to go other places to get those other things. I want to give them everything I can give them under the umbrella of, for you guys, health. Who else can you bring in?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so many people in our program, my coach training,
Mhm.
get to know each other over the course of the 12 weeks, and they know each other's strengths and stories. It's a great, um, you
Mhm.
know, marketplace for that kind of
Yeah.
collaboration.
Right.
So what do you, and I'm thinking more about health coaching than business coaching here, because business coaches, I think the big difference is that people who are doing business are going towards something. And a lot of people who come for health coaching, at least at first, are trying to avoid something or get away from something. So it's much more avoidance than approach. And it's a very different energy. For those people, what would you do between sessions to
Mhm.
encourage them to stay connected and to show up? Because a lot of people, like, they'll eat a crappy meal and they'll be like, I don't feel like I can show my face. Like, precisely when they need to is when they're going to duck out.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't do this, but I think it might, if I was doing health coaching right now, we have a Facebook group for all our programs. So they do have that ability to be in community.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how that would work with a 12-week program. You'd have to open a group and then close a group. But if it was a longer term one, it'd probably work better. But in any event, you'd have a Facebook group, and then you could have Monday confessions, like a thread.
Mm.
People would put in, how I tripped up this weekend. And then you could have another one, Wednesday wins, like, just having those threads and even as the facilitator, posting your own stuff, because if you're transparent, people are going to say, well, okay, if Howie said that he, skipped 3 days of running in a row, then I guess it's okay that I missed 1 day of my exercise routine. Don't have to feel so alone. We're all human,
Mm-hmm.
admitting our own mistakes. And even if we're the facilitator, makes people feel like, oh, well, if he modeled it, I can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I would use the Facebook group and start threads inside there, and have people, post. I was in a similar thing. It was a meditation one, or I don't remember. It was a while ago, and it was like a 28-day thing, and you had to meditate 28 days in a row. And if you skipped a day, you had to start over. Like, it was one of those things. And we were all posting, damn it, like, I met 25 days. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And like, oh my God, it was a minute to midnight. And I remembered I didn't meditate. And we, go into the Facebook and say, I'm doing it now. Everybody was really honest about it. They shared it. People were like starting and restarting and talking about what got in the way. So I think just having a forum where people can speak about it, right, and be encouraging in there can really help in between.
Okay, great, thanks. So for folks who are listening to this and want to know more about running group programs and how to fill them, you're the expert. Where can they find out more?
So if they go to highlyprofitablepractice.com,
Okay.
and just, I actually have a really great resource there, and it's design and create it's called Mastermind in 2 weeks or less, but the same principles apply to group coaching. So it's really, mastermind group and a group coaching group can overlap in some ways, but don't let the word mastermind get in your way. But it's a great, I take you through, you can have all the nuts and bolts on how to build your group, how to fill it, what to do during the group, how to create the agenda. And then if you want to reach out to me, you can also do Susan at highlyprofitablepractice.com, and I'm happy to chat with you.
Great. Well, Susan Epstein,
Yes.
thank you so much for all the wisdom and help you've imparted to me over the years, and for sharing these wonderful tips and nuggets with my health coaches today.
Thanks, Howie.
So catch you later.
You too.